What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Huddle. We come at you every Tuesday, 3 o'clock Central, and what we discuss is maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. As usual, most of the concepts we talk about are applicable in flooring and any business, really, but we specifically dive in on flooring as that is our favorite industry. So this week, we get the pleasure of drawing on our Forward Progress Scholarship, which we did in conjunction with the FCICA. And so the way we're going to do this, let's see if we can have Ashlyn turn on her video. Behind her there, you'll see all the applicants as well as a number next to them. Next to that number, as you see, there's a small little device in the lower left-hand corner there, which we are going to draw, and that number will coincide with that name, and that will be our winner. So we're going to do that here a little bit later. And today, what we are discussing is the first part to another series, which is just what you want to see in the industry this year. What real concrete change can we bring, and what would we see at the end of this year that would tell us we succeeded in that objective? So this week we're starting with the installers, what I call the foundation of our industry. So gentlemen, well, first off, let me introduce Jose and Daniel. As usual, you guys are with us this week. And Jose, you are looking fabulous for having COVID, sir. So
day one.
Glad you still made it here. So I thought I'd kick it off with, what can we measure at the end of this year from an installation standpoint that would tell us, yes, we accomplished that. One idea that has, and something that's really kind of really integral to the way I believe, is training. And if we get maybe we can get a metric of how many were trained last year through the various entities and how many we get trained this year. We thought that would be a good metric, easy to measure. I also believe that the overall average hammer rating in Go Carerra where do we want that? And it's easy to measure because it's all digital, but what would the average be and where would we want that to be? But I think it's all based on training. What would you guys really love from an installation standpoint? What would you really love to see happen this year?
I would like to see more people get involved in the training. Just in general, I would like to see the older generations, kind of in the middle installer age group, to start pushing the education. So that way the education portion doesn't take so long, right? Like some guys don't get to actually learn and put their hands on for a few years. Some guys get to do it right away because they don't have a choice. But what if we, as an industry, were able to advocate together and push the envelope as far as getting the awareness that education could further your career a lot faster in the industry? If you were just to, I know it sucks to say, but maybe sacrifice a little funds for some training, sacrifice a little time for some training to kind of view the big picture. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see people view it more for investment versus a pain in the butt to get away from work for a week or for a few days.
That's what I was going to say, because we talked about that before, about investing in yourself, and that's really all it is you said sacrifice, but it's really more of an investment, right? Because you're using that money for a good cause. You're actually going out and learning. I mean, like I said, man, all it takes is that one thing. All you need to learn is one thing to make a class worth it.
Yeah. Why don't you introduce our guest there, Daniel?
We got Kevin from Roberts, QEP or Roberts.
It's both. So QEP is the umbrella. We have a handful of companies under that name, one of them being Roberts.
Awesome. Well, tell us a bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and kind of how you got in the industry.
Well, I'm a sales manager for Roberts and QEP, sell adhesives, tools, underlayments. I've been in the industry for over 25 years now, 23 years on my knees and 4.5 on this side of the business with the manufacturing side. Big into training programs, educating guys, doing a lot of shows around the country, representing our company and the products that we have, how to use them, and also continuing my education in the installation world and trying to get more guys involved. You asking what I'd like to see in the industry is to try to come together to solve the biggest problem we have in our industry, and that's lack of installers. I mean, we're going to be in a serious problem here coming up if we don't get more people involved. And I'd like to see everybody basically that has an opportunity to take a pledge to bring one person on this year, you know, that they turn them on to the flooring industry, because we need it. This industry needs more people, and it's going to take everybody to solve that problem. I think that would be something I would like to see.
That's a good one.
And I want to just say, like, getting involved, man, just in general, because if we weren't involved, we wouldn't have Kevin. He just showed up out of the blue yesterday. Like, he walked through the door and I'm like, what's up? And it's those relationships that you can build like that. Like, we didn't know he was coming by. He just looked us up since he was in the area, and it's like, come on in.
Yeah, we met at a training deal through CFI years ago now, and have been building that relationship. Jose and I have gotten paired up golfing in that function the last few years, and I listened to this podcast because of the relationship and meeting these two. I love what you guys are doing, and I figured I'm in the area, but I better stop by, especially after one of your last podcasts where you're talking about relationships with
The reps and
reps
everything.
and whatever. And I was on that, trying to chime in a little bit on that. So, I don't want to talk about it. I want to be about it and get involved.
Amen.
I like that. Who?
Deal.
Yeah,
and
that might be our saying for the show here is
Yeah, don't talk about it, be
don't talk
about it.
about it, be about it. So bringing one pledging to bring one person in is an interesting way to look at it. Like, what does it look like to grab somebody by the hand and take them into our industry? What does that look like? It's certainly finding people is always tough, right? That's what we hear a lot. But at the same time, if you take that personal approach with somebody and show them that you actually care about them, you might be able to actually pull that off. And with the installer base that we have, if each person brought in one individual, take them to a show, take them to a conference, take them to a CFI, take them to FCICA, something.
it doesn't even have to be anything big like that. Like, our local distributors have open houses. Take them to an open house, give them that time, even if it's for an extended lunch on that day, take them to do something.
Free hot dogs.
I know from the vendor perspective, we do a lot of stuff through our distributors that sell our products, and we'll set up for all day, let the guys come in, take a look at the tools, talk about the adhesives that we sell, the benefits of using one product over another. But it's good to bring the guys in. It's a small little bit of education that we can do on a regular basis instead of having to travel to here or there. It's just a local distributor. There's always food, there's always good conversation, and there's people good camaraderie. It's people that are involved in the same stuff.
Yeah,
coming together and talking about their, the issues they may be having, the successes they may be having, and how to overcome some problems and stuff like that. So,
that's a good point. Going to these things, and Jeremy keeps on asking if he won, but we didn't draw yet. So
Stay tuned, Jeremy. We're gonna be drawing here shortly.
But
Good luck to everybody.
these local events and actually getting to know some of the other local installers, because there's quite a few around here that we don't even know. And once we do meet some of the people that we haven't met before, they always know our name even though we don't necessarily know theirs. And it shouldn't be like that. We should actually be going out and approaching them and just stop in. And anyone is welcome to stop in. And that's how we've gotten to know a few of the installers. They'll just like Kevin did, just pop their head through
Yep,
the door. It's
pop
like,
in.
come on in, man. Let's start talking.
Well, it's
It's funny.
creative recruiting.
Yeah, years ago, we Daniel started a page for West Michigan flooring installers, right? And we wanted to get everyone together on the same page and like just have like a little powwow with everyone. And it's just everyone's so busy and so stuck in the moment that it's hard to coordinate that with that many people. But I know that if we were able to do that, that would be a really sweet thing to have, just like an installer type meeting with some of the local guys in our area. Maybe you guys already do it in your area, but just to be able to have everyone meeting and help solve one another's problems or issues or save potential issues from happening, right? And I think that would happen. And that's what people don't get is we're not in it to compete with anybody. There's no competition out there. We're in it to win it together as a team. And I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to have success. And that's the whole thing.
If you look at it from that perspective, we're not, like you said, we're not competing. We're actually there to try and help anyone that needs it. And if that's what this entire thing is about, that's why we started this podcast. If we've already been through something that you're going through right now, reach out. Are we perfect? No, no one is. But if we have overcome something that you're going through right now, we want to be that medium for you, so that way you don't have to struggle through something.
Well, and I think it's important when you start talking about kind of congregating and trying to assemble people is not like someone doesn't have to lose for others to win. So I love the approach that, like you said, Jose, and like you just iterated, Daniel, that we can all win. There's more than enough for everybody. It doesn't have to be. Our industry is sincerely plagued with the what is that? Like, I forget the term, but it's basically fear of sharing. Like if someone else's success equals your failure, and that's not really the key with installers. One of the biggest problems we have at Go Carerra is companies not wanting to onboard their installers because they don't want other companies to have access to their installers, as if they own them, and as if that someone else succeeding equals them not succeeding. And we can all succeed. We can all benefit from installation and labor efficiencies, which we've talked about before on the podcast. And just to reiterate that point, it's a quick math, and I've talked to multiple people over this, but it's more of a thought experiment. And it's like, if one crew loses 8 hours a week, that's on a 2-person crew, that's 16 hours a week lost. And it's reasonable to assume that happens on a week by week across the industry basis, that a crew will miss out on 8 hours worth of work from the job site not being ready, the conditions not quite being there, or materials not showing up on time, or the GC just isn't ready, or the homeowner's just not ready that day, and it gets pushed a couple of days. It's reasonable to assume that we lose 8 hours for a crew. That's 16 hours a week that's lost per crew. Now, if you just said, look, let's take that over 10,000 crews. Well, that's 160,000 hours a week lost, which equals 4,000 lost work weeks every week. So we have a labor shortage, no doubt. We also have a labor efficiency issue where when a sitting, if they can go get work from another company to fill their void in that schedule for 2 days, that's good for everybody. You don't lose the labor hours. The sub stays busy and keeps money flowing. And some other company got a job done that they desperately needed to get done. It's really win-win-win. There's no downfall to it. It's just this scarcity. That's what I was trying to think of. It's a scarcity mindset. Like, oh, I got to keep all my stuff here. Well, let's open our knowledge. share our knowledge. Let's share our collective experiences and try to help people not make the same mistake. So this year, I would love to see, another good measure is how many flooring failures happen. That's measurable. Some of the stuff that we may or may not have. And I don't know, does Roberts keep tabs on dollar figures of flooring failures from installation or manufacturer defect installation issues?
We don't have any failures. So, yeah, of course we do. We keep track of everything, and not just, failures, but specific to what products. That allows us to make corrections if need be, or to figure out why that problem's happening. So yeah, we keep a pretty significant log, a very detailed log of any kind of complaints that come in, anything that gets to inspection point, anything that goes any farther. Fortunately, we've been pretty lucky this year. We've not just this year, but we have very few failures across the country. So we're pretty lucky on that, and things happen. That's going to happen. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of the failures that I see are usually environmental, right?
I was going to ask you that question from your standpoint, and being a past installer, I would assume that you kind of take it. We all know there are some manufacturers that really are aggressive against the installer. I'm not going to name names, but during the claim process, it always tends to be the installer's fault for some reason or other. But you being in your position and your background, what would you say is the number one issue when it comes to flooring failures, that just from your experience? It doesn't.
From my experience, I think it's a little bit of a blend between installer failure and environmental failure. And a lot of the installer failures that I see are directly related to environmental failures, that if they were a little bit more knowledgeable, maybe had a little bit more training, they would have taken the steps to avoid the environmental failure. So from a manufacturing standpoint, unfortunately, if the installer gets blamed because of something that he didn't do and that he was supposed to do, even though it's an environmental issue, it is what it is. That's why, trying to get and gain as much knowledge in what you do is so important, to be able to avoid the problems that are already there that you might not know about without the knowledge behind it, and how to test for it and how to deal with it. One of the things a lot of guys do will go in with a moisture meter and test, throw a cheap moisture meter on the floor and say it's okay. Well, the bottom line is that's not the standards, right? The standards is you got to do an ASTM 2170 or 1869. Those are the only two that are recognized in the industry, correct?
So, yeah, and for those of you who don't know, 1869 is the calcium chloride, and 2170 is the in situ, the relative humidity test of the concrete.
Hey, which one is the one where you duct tape a piece of plastic to the floor?
That's a map test. That's a map test. That's the, I don't know. Anyway, but I mean, it's just a fact of knowledge, right? The more knowledge you have, the less likely you are to have a failure. And I mean, and that's with anything in life, but especially with flooring. And the fact is, there's so much going on every job is so different. There's so many things you have to be aware of. The more knowledge that you have to be able to avoid the problems on your job site is crucial. So, I push everybody for education. I mean, myself, I'm still going through education. I've got one in February that I'm going to. Constantly, things are changing in this industry. You got to constantly be on top of it. Standards are changing, products are changing. So without this knowledge, you run into some of these old school guys, or, well, I don't do that, and I don't need to do that.
They're still re-notching their trowel, the same trowel that they've had.
Yeah, and the problem here is
sometimes you might have the knowledge and you forget it. So even going to get refreshed in your head about stuff that you may have been doing years ago that you're not doing on a regular basis, that kind of got, that fell out this side of the head. Just hearing it again, this is why it's so important to get together with other people in your field to discuss this stuff, because there's stuff that can be reiterated into your head that you might not have been doing, that you might know and you just forgot to do. Or you hear one horror story, from one guy, and you're like, man, I better start doing my moisture test, and not just one here. I got to do one for, let's say, every unit in a complex, right? That's another thing guys don't know. They're like, well, I did a moisture test on the second
Hey,
floor. Okay,
hey,
what about the sixth, seventh, eighth floor, right? Well, you know, it was fine down here. I mean, so there's really a lot that goes on, and a lot you can pick up from just talking with other guys. And
well, and I think that
stuff like
points
that.
out what we preach every week is getting trained. And the key here is it's not just hand skills, right? You're talking about intellectual property, really, is understanding why things need to be done the way that the industry has stated per industry standards. So why do we do it that way? And one of the things that maybe a pet peeve of mine is when I hear somebody say, I've done it this way for 20 years, or I've never had a problem with it. Well, you also probably never laid this recycled backing. So it's probably best that you understand what this particular piece of material, how it has to be handled and treated to effectively end in a good quality installation that'll last the expected time for the end user.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, CJ? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, CJ's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got CJ with us today from FCICA for the drawing. And so I'm sure she's excited to find the winner as much as we are. So CJ, welcome.
That's what I was gonna say about the technology, right? Because it's not only the technology in the products that you're putting down, it's the technology in the concrete. What are they putting in the concrete? All this stuff adds up. And if you're not trying to keep track of everything that's changing, then you're just gonna end up failing anyways. Because I mean, just look at the buckets of adhesive. There sometimes we'll spread a bucket one week, and then the next week, then you read the bucket, the notch size has changed. Well, that's changed for a reason. So
yeah, and it does change. It does change. I mean, we're
Can you talk through that a little bit of how, or at least why some of this stuff changes? Because I think it's important for installers to understand that regardless, guys, and men and women in the field, in the installation crews, just because ultimately you have to take responsibility, I guess what I'm trying to get to. Like, you have to understand what you're putting down and understand the proper notch, the when to roll it, how long to flash, all of these things that go into it. But I thought if you could share kind of what happens when you do change, say, a trial size or whatever, what happens there? Are you testing in the
So we do a lot of inside testing ourselves in our labs, but we also send a lot of stuff out for extensive outside testing by organizations as well. Some of the changes that might present itself you're most likely not going to hear about unless you pull out that data sheet and read it again, because it might change as of a week ago. And those changes come up because new products come out, and just because you say it's we say that this glue is okay to use with a WPC. Well, within the last 6 months, you might see different backings starting to come out, and we get these products sent to us to specifically test so they can be put on, our adhesive can be put on their data sheets as okay to use with our product. And then sometimes we might find a problem down the line, and then we have to reevaluate the entire line of WPCs, for instance, just using it as an example. So we're constantly testing all new products that are coming out with the help of the manufacturers of the flooring themselves, and things come up and that we find down the road that we might have a product that might work better.
So what does the how do you communicate that?
So on our end, we have on our website, you can always go on our website, robertsconsolidated.com. Every adhesive that we carry is on there. All of our safety data sheets are on there. All of our technical data sheets are on there, specifically what you can and cannot use it for, trowel notches, coverage rate, open time, work time. It's all on there. We make it very easy, because what the bottom line is, the number one tool that every installer has with them on every job site is their phone. Okay, so we try to make it as easy as possible that you can pull your phone out and take a look at that product. When I was installing, we were dealing with flip phones and beepers, right? So
Yeah.
things have changed a lot, and they've made it a lot
Man.
easier. So my advice to any installers, before you go out to that job the night before, to spend 10 minutes and read up on your technical data sheets of the products that you're putting down, and make sure that when you go in the next day that you're not having to second guess yourself, and you know what you're doing to make a more efficient day. Because that's where the money is at, is efficiency. We were talking about it yesterday when I was in here about, how you can make so much more money being a more efficient installer. So this will
Yes.
make you more efficient. Nobody, it doesn't matter how much you make on that job if you got to go back and redo that job or pay for that product. And again, things change on these data sheets. We want to give, as a company, give you the knowledge to do the job right. And we hope that you guys are following these instructions. And everybody knows, if you don't follow the instructions, anything can happen. I mean, we see them every day on social
Even
media.
when you
and
do
whatnot.
follow the instructions,
Even when
anything
you-
can happen.
Anything can happen. You never
Yeah,
know.
there's
But at
another
least you're
problem.
covered, right?
But if you have the knowledge, you have the best chances of a successful install.
Yeah, so story time. I had a project back in 2016 that had a claim on it, and it was an underlayment from Foam Products, and it's called Silencer, and it has one side that has a film on it and one side that does not. And the installation instructions within the rolls was different because they had changed their install instructions from film down to film up. So we installed the project film up per the most relevant and recent installation instructions, which was on the website. The roll actually had the wrong install instructions. So what you just said about knowing ahead of time, looking it up on your phone, or popping out the laptop and looking it up, had we not done that, we would have installed it incorrectly. In fact, we got called on it, and they were like, "You're installing this wrong." And we're like, "No, we stay up with the industry standards on the website. So we always search for the most recent and relevant data, install data." And so we were able to prove that, yeah, look, go to the website, look here, it's newer, and this is the correct way to install it. Of course, the manufacturer backed us up on that, but the key here is knowing what you're doing and keeping the knowledge so that you do install it correctly. And even then, like you said, we have a very complicated industry with environmental concerns and job site conditions and all this stuff, and installer installation quality and their skills and knowing their skill level. But all that being said, being diligent and making sure that you know what you're installing when you show up to the job adds to that efficiency you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, make sure you do it before you get to your job. You don't want to worry your customer when you're
reading
pulling
the
out some data
instructions.
sheets in front of them and reading it.
I do it anyways.
I just learned.
I got a question. I wonder, and I just thought about this. I wonder if there's a way to pull up like a chart over the last 20 years for some very common adhesives or materials where the specs have changed. Like what year and what were the changes from solvent to water base, and why those were changed, right? Like the science behind it. I wonder if there's a way to get that, so that way we can get a visual to some of the installers or even myself, so we can see who, what, when, and where, and when the changes made and how grouped together some of those changes were. So
well,
that
I
way
think
maybe it pushes it.
That's so large because you're talking about all the recycled backings on carpet tile.
Yeah, just a general, like
or the LVTs or whatever, but the big numbers of like when solvents were taken out by the EPA, and all the manufacturers had to scramble to try to create an adhesive that would hold our floors down. And we went through a hard time. I mean, if you guys were around, you remember that. I mean, I was around when we took solvents out, and it was not fun. And in the carpet world, they also introduced unitary backing about the same time. So now we have a very hard product to install that needs a lot of adhesive and a lot of grab with adhesives that were just being formulated to abide by the new EPA laws. So that was a tough time to be an installer because I remember at one point the notch trowel for unitary backing was doggone near the same size as your V-notch ceramic tile trowel.
Ooh.
It was damn near the same size. It was so much glue trying to keep your adhesive from squirting between your seams and such. And it was a nightmare. Do you remember that back in the late 90s? You guys,
No, I was 98. I was 98. I started in 98.
All right. Well, yeah. So it was but that's what we're getting at here, is staying up to date. You know, you may have done it the same way for 20 years and it succeed. The problem is the materials have changed and they continue to change. These guys are always trying to find the most efficient product to help you be a great installer. And I'm speaking these guys, I mean, Roberts and other adhesive manufacturers are working hard to create great product that makes the installer more efficient and better.
We missed the monobond era. The monobond, we heard all about it from a couple of the same guys, but monobond this, monobond that, we missed that era.
I'd like to add too, you know, keep your ears out for industry changes too, because if something changes in the industry as far as regulations of what can and cannot be done or what can and cannot be used, when those changes happen too, be aware that, you know, the manufacturers from adhesives are going to probably change to adapt to that as well. So it's another thing to look out for when you're talking about changes in technical data sheets too.
Yeah, and I would add that, you know, there's organizations out there that have webinars and such that address a lot of this. I mean, FCICA is one of them. They have they have more than a monthly, but they have webinars very often that address some of these issues. When there's a major change in the flooring industry, like they will have a webinar about it. So
and when you're a member, you can go back and rewatch them.
Yeah. So, you know, join the FCICA, get involved. I know it's several $100 and it may seem like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, one failure averted, you know, saving yourself from one failure pays for that tenfold. So I would love to see installers invest more in themselves this year. That's what I would love, I guess, at the basis. And I don't know how we, you know, or measure that metric wise, but overall, being more informed and better trained, more tuned into the industry, like you're talking about, where you know when there's a change, and you know, and you can have faith that the industry, like there are mechanisms out there to keep you informed. You just got to plug in and be part of the industry, not just, hey, I install, I go home, and that's it. That's treating it almost like a hobby. Treat your career like a doggone career and stay informed and stay plugged in and stay trained. I mean, look at everybody on here. Everybody, we've talked for doggone, what episode we on?
31.
30 something weeks we've talked about being trained. Like almost every episode, we talk about making sure that you're participating in the industry training, and a lot of this can keep you from making those mistakes. So yeah,
I think talking about the FCICA is a good spot to actually do this drawing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we are at that time. So what we're going to do now, first off, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and remind everybody that what we're drawing for today is the FCICA STEM program. It's the Forward Progress Scholarship sponsored by Go Carerra, and we are going to draw the winner today. So I'm gonna mute myself here and turn it over to Ashlyn to do the drawing. So.
Poor CJ, she's just listening to us the whole time.
Great conversation. So you guys do a great podcast.
Do we have any suspenseful music?
You could sing it.
You don't want me to sing. You don't want me to sing. Everybody's muted.
I'm not muted.
Oh no, controversy.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Okay. Sorry, I've been over here talking to myself. I apologize. I don't know if you guys heard that. So Carissa Parr is our winner, and we'll be shooting you an email, Carissa, with the instructions on how to take advantage. Congratulations. This has been going on for a couple of months. We've been going through it.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for submitting and getting involved, and hopefully we can do this a few more times over the next year. And I want to thank the FCICA for joining us today. Thank you, CJ. Yeah, you got anything to say, CJ?
No, just thank you very much, Go Carerra, for doing this scholarship. We appreciate it. The industry appreciates it, so that we can get more certified installation managers out there. The SIM program, I know you guys have been talking about it, but and training and everything, but it's the only training program for the installation manager process. So it goes from when you receive an estimate all the way through like closing out the job, and then there's even a claims module at the end as well. So it definitely helps with planning out jobs and obviously project management. So we appreciate your support, and our it's offered online. So this who did you say won it again, Paul?
Carissa Parr.
Great. So Carissa can do it. She can become a sim online, or she can become a sim at one of our in-person 3 days to sim programs. And we are just about to release, we have an upcoming program February 21st through the 23rd in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we'll have a few more throughout the year as well. So in person is great because it adds that networking component. Jose did it in person when he became a sim. But it's always available online too, because sometimes that just works better for people being able to do it, you know, at your own schedule and your own pace.
Sure. Can I ask you a question, CJ?
Yeah.
Obviously it's called SIM, which is Certified Installation Manager, but would you say there's a lot of value to installers who've been around, maybe running several crews or several people? There's some value, a lot of value there for the installer as well. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially if you have multiple crews and you're working on multiple projects, anytime you're managing multiple projects, I definitely think that this is beneficial for you, for an installer. And it's also a really great next step in your career path. So for any installer, if you want to, you know, follow a career path and stay in the flooring industry, becoming an installation manager is definitely the great next step for that. So
Yeah, good point.
yeah. And then
That definitely brings awareness.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we've talked over several podcasts about the fact that understanding what companies are being taught through the SIM program is by itself really valuable for you to understand why decisions are made within a company that you might be doing business with. You may be a sub working for preferred flooring. Well, you can kind of understand, if you've went through it, why Jose may make a decision or you know, set a job up a certain way that you may not agree with, but this is why he does it. And so there's just a lot of benefit, I think, to anybody in the flooring industry to become a sim. But I don't want installers to feel like it just is an installation manager position. It is, but like you said, it's a good next step for furthering your career. But it's also just, I think, is going to make you a better installer.
Absolutely. Cross training is everything, right? In
There you go.
the industry, but especially in flooring. So
Awesome. Go
And
ahead,
that's kind of what I was gonna get into as well, because it's like, you know, what can the installers do? The installers can try and actually, you know, talk to the salespeople or, you know, their project managers to kind of see what they go through on a daily basis. So it's not so far separated, because you look at these groups and it's always like, salesmen are only thinking about one thing and installers are only thinking about one thing. And it's like, how do we bridge that gap so everyone can
Yeah.
actually agree on something other than we need more installers?
Yeah.
It brings
that's a-
perspective and it definitely helps open up that line of communication, right? Like from an installer perspective, if you're an installer, you take the sim program, it gives you insight as to what the salesperson or the sales team has to go through and what they're looking at to come up with a final number or come up with a schedule for the installer. And for the management or the sales team, it gives them perspective from the installation side as to what type of problems the installers are facing on projects, on job sites. So it helps them understand what to look for to help mitigate that before the project starts. It's about being proactive, not reactive, right? Being reactive, sometimes it's already too late, but if you can be proactive and eliminate some scenarios before the project starts, before it gets out of hand, or make corrections to some pricing on the next couple of projects and let that pricing evolve to where it needs to be so it's profitable for the company, whether their installers are hourly or for both the subcontractor and the sales team involved. There's a lot more to it than just getting a little more knowledge. It does bridge that gap, and that's what's awesome about the sim program.
Well, there we go. Bridge the gap with sim. All right, guys. Well, hey, everyone, I appreciate you joining us today. Again, I want to congratulate Carissa on her sim
Congratulations.
there. So that's really awesome. And we will be back here next Tuesday as well. So we're going to continue the series about what we may want to see. What's next week? So it's manufacturers and distributors. So we haven't mentioned we're going to be talking about some of the things that we want to see from them. And just to prelude that a little bit, I think it's really getting, you have been involved with plenty of installers, but from a big picture, manufacturers understanding how important it is. Like they'll say it's important to train, but what are we doing as an industry to make sure from a manufacturer side to make sure that the installer touching your goods and putting it down is trained? How do we know? And how can we make sure we know? And then what mechanisms can we use to help keep track of that? And, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot boiled into the manufacturer side and what they can do to help the installation community. And thus, I believe it's the foundation of the flooring industry is the installer. So if we build that foundation strong this next year, we can look at some prosperity. And, we just all got to band together, guys, get on the podcast, go to shows, get involved and email any one of us if you want to know how to do that. So
I wore my ties competition shirt today because Kevin's going to be competing this year.
What's that?
Kevin's going to be competing in the carpet category this year, so I had to wear my competition shirt.
Tune in. Let's see what happens. Right? Gonna be some.
They have carpet tile there this year.
Well, awesome, Kevin. Well, good luck, and we'll see you at Tice.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.